Hey everyone, it's Lil D from LilDevet.com and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming the next installment of my Traveler's Notebook series. We're going to be going over where to find booklets for your Traveler's Notebooks. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share a list of resources where you can find them. Then I'm going to share some of the options for booklets that I have in my personal collection. And lastly, I'm going to share with you my #1 tip in helping you find booklets for your traveler's notebook, regardless of where you are or what size notebook you use. So if you're interested in learning more, please keep watching. For the sake of trying to keep this video as short as possible, what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize some of the sources that you can look to get traveler's notebooks. So to begin, the first place you can look is where you purchased your traveler's notebook cover from. Usually the vendor will sell booklets along with their covers, so that's a perfect place to start. Many of us, we tend to admire other traveler's notebook users as they share their pictures on social media. So along with their notebooks, they tend to share what Etsy sellers or online sellers carry notebooks, whether they're decorative or simplistic. So that's a good place to look. Next, you can always look on Amazon. Amazon pretty much carries everything, including notebooks and the traveler's notebook, previously known as the Midori brand notebooks. And lastly, a good rule of thumb is to look to online sellers that sell stationery supplies, office supplies, things along those lines. So if your comfort level is to shop online, those are some sources that you can look at. In terms of looking locally, if you're the type of person that likes to get things quicker or see them in person, same rule of thumb, pretty much apply. Going to an office supply store like a Staples or an Office Max, going to a craft store. Many craft stores are now starting to sell their own brand and other brands of traveler's notebook. So of course they're going to have the booklets along with them. So popular places are Michael's and Hobby Lobby. You can also look to bookstores, which carry tons and tons of specialty notebooks like Barnes & Noble. Stationery stores, places like TJ Maxx and Marshall's, or even your local Target and Walmart will usually have like a place where they have notebooks and things like that, and you can probably find a notebook. So in general, those are a multitude of sources that you can look to in order to find a notebook. Now, the next thing we're going to go into, I'm going to share with you some of the notebooks and share some of the brands that I have found that I have in my collection, and I'm going to go size by size. I'll try to do this relatively quick. And then, like I said, at the very end, I'm going to give you the #1 tip to keep in mind that will always help you find a booklet for your traveler's notebook. So 2 quick disclaimers before we get started. One, I'm going to be using approximate sizes for a lot of the booklets that I'm talking about. And that's just because, like with the covers, a lot of booklet makers also sometimes take the liberty of adjusting the booklet sizes. So it could be a little bit more and a little bit less. So as long as you're within the ballpark, you should be fine. And secondly, I've tried to share some of the booklets that I've been able to find for all of the sizes, which can make for a lengthy video. So if you're just interested in learning a little bit more of what options are available for the sizes that you own, I'm going to leave timestamps down below so that way you can jump to those sections and you don't have to watch the whole thing. Of course, I'd appreciate it if you watch the whole thing, so thank you if you do. And then, like I said at the end, I'm going to share a tip for helping you, find those elusive notebooks, whether it's online or locally. So let's jump right in. So the first traveler's notebook we're going to look at is this little guy, which is called the Micro or Nano, or some vendors even refer to it as a size 0. It is very, very small, and I'm going to warn you, this is a size that I don't believe it's standardized, so some of the makers will have certain dimensions and others will have others. So for example, this particular notebook I got from Chic Sparrow, and this one will take booklets that are 2 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches. So I have I ordered these 2 little booklets also from Chic Sparrow. Like I said, you can always order from the maker. And these fit perfectly in here. Now there are other makers, another popular choice. For example, Foxy Fix has a size 0, and their measurements for their size 0 notebook is 3 by 4 inches. So these 2 booklets here are by Moleskine, and they pretty much measure about that size. I brought a ruler along so I can show you what some of the dimensions are. So this one measures about 2.5 inches by a little bit over 4 inches. So I originally purchased these little Moleskine books thinking they would fit into my Nano, but I didn't realize that it's actually smaller. So this is a perfect example of how some makers will sometimes take the liberty of making their notebooks a little wider, a little taller, and you really have to be careful because the notebook that you're buying may or may not fit. So for a Foxy Fix 0, I would think that these Moleskines are a much better choice, and they should fit because it falls more or less within the dimensions. Whereas if you're ordering from Chic Sparrow, your best bet is to order from her, and that way you're assured that it will definitely fit in your notebook. So this is generally for the micro or nano or size 0. Next, let's move on to passport size. Next, we're going to look at the passport size. This is the passport cover from previously known as Midori, now known as the Traveler's Notebook Company. And of course, as a Traveler's Notebook seller, they have their own passport size booklets. This just came in the packaging and I decided to clip it on. But these are 2 booklets that of course fit perfectly within the cover. Next here, I have these 2 beautiful booklets that I found at my local office supply store. I'm not familiar with this brand. It's by a company called Timree, Timree, and they have a website, www.timree.com. And I just thought they were really pretty, and they looked about, approximately the size of a traveler's notebook in the passport size. So I was right. It's the same height. It's just a little bit narrower, but that's okay because it just means that, there won't be any overhang. So that's an example of just stumbling across another maker with a passport size booklet. And then lastly, these 3 booklets I got from a company called Yellow Paper House. So they sell a lot of beautiful inserts. This one is with almost like a Hobonichi type format and grid paper. This one is lined, and then this one is blank. So here, this is an Etsy seller. This is from the maker, and then this was from my local office supply store. As you can see, I was able to find a number of choices for my passport size notebook. So next up, let's take a look at field note size. Next up, we're going to talk about field note size. So here I have a number of choices. One of the most widely spread choices, these are 2 booklets by Moleskine. And they usually come, I'm trying to remember if it's a 2 or 3 pack. I have a blank and a lined. So these are always a good option and easy to find. Also in my local Target, I found what looked like, and I thought they were Moleskine, but they were actually these really pretty, they had patterns on them, and they're very close to the Moleskines, but it's actually by a company called Green Inspired. So they also have a website, green-inspired.com, and I think these also come in a 2 or 3 pack, and again, they fit perfectly because it's approximately the same size. The pocket or field note size generally is about 3.5 inches by 5.5 inches. And then these 3 beautiful booklets. I'm telling you, I have a lot of luck when I go to my local office supply store. I think these were by Cynthia Rowley. I may be wrong, but I think I'm right. It was a 3-pack, and again, they were really beautiful notebooks, and they just the size looked to me like it was roughly around the size of a pocket size, and as you can see, it is. So those were some great options. Now this other one here, this is a book that I've had for a very, very long time. And it just, again, it just looked about the size of a field note size. So I actually don't mind whether it's a thin notebook or a bound book, because what I tend to do is I just wrap the strap from the cover along the back cover and then also the inner cover, so that way it'll hold it in place. But I really, don't have a preference, because again, these things can, as you can see, it fits pretty well, and there's no really overhang. And then here you can stick the booklets, and depending on the size of your cover, you can also stuff it. So here are some more choices for your field note size. And next up, we're going to take a look at A6. Next up, we have A6, and I'm going to start piling up the booklets, because as the books get bigger, I run out of room to keep them in frame. So this is my A6 cover. And like I mentioned before, you can always get a booklet from the maker. So this was a booklet from Chic Sparrow that I bought when I bought the booklet. This was a great find. This is by a company called Essentials. And I was just searching for A6 booklets, which, by the way, tend to measure about 4.1 inches by 5.8. Or if you just round it off, just say 4 by 6. So I found this book brand on Amazon, and they are really, really inexpensive. So I bought the graph. They also have a blank, and I'm trying to remember if they also have a lined. And the paper quality is actually pretty decent. I write in them with fountain pens, so it's turned out to be a great option. This one should look familiar to Hobonichi fans. This is, of course, the Hobonichi Techo in the A6 size. So, of course, this fits perfectly in an A6 cover. And then some honorable mentions. There's an online company by the name of Cloth and Paper, and they sell so many beautiful and chic and unusual planner items. So they had this 2 booklet set, which when I looked at it and reviewed the dimensions, it just struck me as, oh, that would fit perfectly. Now the width is pretty much spot on. It is just a tad bit shorter, but again, it really doesn't matter. And that's one thing that you should take away from all this. Sometimes it may not be perfect. It may be a little bit, narrower, or it may be a little bit shorter, but the goal is, as long as you get it within the dimensions, it'll fit in your booklet. So don't be afraid, if you're within, like I said, the general ballpark, you should be fine. So as you can see, these are great. They have the gold foiling. Also, when I was in my local supply store, I think this was from Staples, also by Cynthia Rowley. Again, this was just something I had seen in a display, and it just struck me as an A6. And when I came home, I stuck it into my notebook, and sure enough, it was perfectly. The height was just right. It's a little thicker, but again, no overhang, so that worked out just fine. I'm trying to block the glare, you guys. I apologize. And then lastly, here's another unconventional option. So this is a Filofax book. I forget what this model is called, but it has these it's almost like the disc-bound system, where you can kind of pop in and out pages, because it has these notches cut in. So this one came, it's a blank book with dividers. And again, the dimensions were just right, so I can either thread this, or if I so choose, I can just slide it into the side pocket here and, put a regular notebook in there. I can hide this little band. And sure enough, you know, here's another option of carrying, you know, something with dividers. That's a different format, but still fits into my cover, you know. So my recommendation to you is to just keep an open mind. If it looks like it'll fit, it probably will, and it just opens up the door to more and more options. So there we go. A couple of options from online sources, local sources, all within the A6 realm. And now let's move on to personal size. So next up we have personal size, and personal size is 3 3/4 inches by 6 3/4 inches. So I don't have too many options here. When I first discovered the personal size traveler's notebook, there weren't too many makers offering them in this size. So I only have 2, but since then there are now more and more options available. So when I started off, this one actually came from a different notebook maker. It's from Apple Pig Leather. And I love this one because it's a thick booklet. The paper quality is great, and it's grid size paper and fits perfectly into my cover. And then once again, I just went back to Yellow Paper House. They have a lot of great formats, both unconventional and standard, and paper quality is always good. So, you know, they were offering personal size at the time, so I decided to pick one up from them as well. I decided not to stick with this size because I actually prefer other sizes, so that's why I only have 2 booklets. But if you're coming from a ring-bound planner, specifically personal size, this is a great transition into the traveler's notebook world, because this is the exact same size, only in a traveler's notebook. So there you go. So next up, let's talk about B6 Slim. So here we have one of my favorite sizes, the B6 Slim. It measures 4 1/4 inches by 7 1/4 inches. Is about the same size of a standard traveler's notebook, except it's 1 inch shorter. So I have a B6 Slim cover from Giorgiono. And like I said before, if they sell the cover, they most likely have inserts to go along with it. So here I have 3. One of them came with my cover, and it's a dot grid. I also decided to try out her monthly undated, and then I just got an extra dot grid, and I was good to go. Many of you know that I'm a fan of the Gibbon Techo Japanese planner. So this is my 2017 Gibbon Techo. This is what the cover generally looks like. I just have a decorative cover on it. I apologize for the glare. And it comes with 2 additional booklets, which I have right here. And these are also a B6 Slim, which would fit perfectly into this cover. And then lastly, as a bonus, I just wanted to share, earlier in 2017, I got into the Hobonichi Weeks. And this is pretty slim, but it also fits perfectly into a B6 Slim cover because it's more or less the same height. It's just a little narrower. And at the beginning of the year, what I was doing was I was using this Hobonichi Weeks for all my personal primary planning, and then I decided to get a second one to do my content planning for my blog and YouTube. So I actually had 2 of them here. So if you can imagine 2 of these, you'll see how they would have fit perfectly. It would have expanded the cover, but I wouldn't really have had a problem with any overhang. So I just want to mention that this is another great option to put into a B6 Slim cover. And then along with the Weeks, there are these notebooks that you can purchase separately, and they're just dot grid notebooks that you can buy to capture additional notes. So, you know, this whole system you can also put into a B6 Slim. And because I'm a fountain pen user, I have some room here, you know, to carry my fountain pen. And when I close the cover, I don't have to worry about my pen sticking out. So those are just some options also available for your B6 Slim. And like I said, I found this size to be very flexible, and it's one of my favorites. So next, let's look at the B6 size. So next up is my B6 size. B6s tend to measure 5 by 7 inches. I started liking the B6 Slim and then ultimately graduated up to the B6, and it's turned out to be one of my favorites because it's big enough to give you enough room for writing, but not so big like the larger sizes that it's, you know, too clunky to carry every day. So it's one of my favorite sizes, and this has been my comfort zone for all of 2017. I still have here my Jib on Techo, which, like I said, I carried this year, and I actually prefer to carry it in a standard B6 cover because I do like carrying multiple booklets. And once you start carrying multiple things, it gets thicker. So with the B6 Slim, it becomes a tight fit and you start getting the overhang. With this one, I can carry not only my planner, but an extra book for notes. So what I've done is I was on Amazon and I was looking for other options to have blank notebooks. And two great options that I stumbled on is this Zequenz, Zequenz Classic 360. It's a beautifully thick book. This one is blank. I actually wanted the dot grid. I didn't realize that I ordered the blank by mistake, but that's okay. It's a great book. It comes with a magnetic bookmark here. It has, let's see here, I think it has like almost 200 pages if I'm not mistaken. All the specs are online. I had taken the packaging off, so I don't have that information, and I just realized that it's not here. But it's, as you can see, it's one of the more thicker booklets, and it's perfect in a B6 cover. This one I stumbled on in my Barnes & Noble. This is the Moleskine To Go notebook. And this is a great notebook. It reminds me a lot of like the Leuchtturm and of course the regular Moleskines. I actually took a Zig marker. I fell in love with this quote and I just wrote it on the cover. But the reason it's called To Go is because in the back it has lined. And then I think in the front, I think there's two formats. I'm not quite sure. They have a, let's see. Oh, plain and ruled, right. So they have, it's lined on one side and then blank on the opposing page. So you get two formats within one book. And I've been using this throughout 2017. So I'm about halfway into the book and it's turned out to be a great option. So that's another one. And it was also a B6 size. And then lastly, also while on Amazon, I discovered these books. They're really, really fun. They have great covers. It's by Doodle, and it was a perfect B6. And it has here line pages. You can put a date up here. And then here on the bottom, you have tasks to execute and highlights of the day. So again, you know, once I started to really like the B6 size, I just started looking for other options that fell within that size range. And I found a lot of different things, not only my favorite planner, but also some of these other booklets. And I have, you know, now the option of either going thicker or going thinner and carrying multiple booklets. So those are all my B6 books. Almost done, you guys, if you're still with me. Let's move on to regular traveler's notebook size. All right, guys, so here we are with the standard or narrow or regular size traveler's notebook. This one tends to measure 4 1/4 inches by 8 1/4 inches. And here there are so many options because this is the most popular size, one of the first to come out. So again, I have my Midori, or as it's known now, the Traveler's Notebook cover. They, of course, have their own line of many inserts. I have here a grid book that I have yet to take out of the packaging. I have the one with the Tomoe River paper, which I tend to use as an art journal because it's great for watercoloring. Moving along, I have another one here that I decided to try and have yet to use. They also have a week on one page with a opposite page of grid, and it's undated, so I can start it anytime. So those three are from the Traveler's Notebook Company. These two booklets here are also Tomoe Ribbon paper, which I ended up using for my bullet journal experiment in 2016. These two booklets are from the Goulet Pens Company, and the paper is amazing. It's 32 sheets or 64 in total, and it's, I believe, 68 GSM Tomoe Ribbon paper, so these are great. This one here is by Moleskine. This is a subline that they have that's called the Chapters book. So this is a very interesting book. They call it Chapters because what they've done is that they've divided the entire book into 7 chapters. Now what I did to find the chapters easier is I put this little sticker at the end. So here's chapter 1, here's chapter 2, all the way up to 7. And the idea is that you use each section for a different purpose. Now, the one thing I will caution you about this one is that it has a very weak spine, especially if you put it into a traveler's notebook. Because once you thread in the strap, it tends to kind of split the spine. So what I have here is this. It looks like a decorative element, but what I did was I put some washi tape to try to keep it together. I may need to do something stronger, maybe some packing tape, but it's a great option because you can find it locally, but just a warning that it gets damaged very easily. As you can see here, it's split in half, and after a while I just, decided to take it out. So that's that one. Once again, in the lineup, Yellow Paper House makes another appearance. They just have a lot of wonderful options. This particular book was a sampler, so here you can see they offer little grid and little dot and big grid and lined and in different colors. So I decided to try that. In this one, this is another format that they have, and it has this beautiful ribbon on the top that you can use perhaps to mark your page or as a header. So I had to use those. This is from Leather Quill Shop. They had some inserts. So this is a template for managing YouTube content. So, and it has a beautiful cover. And this one is for managing blog content. So again, traveler's notebook size, beautiful booklets. And then lastly, as you probably gathered from me talking about an art journal, I decided to try Planner Perfect. She makes these beautiful booklets with mixed media paper, nice and thick Strathmore paper, and then this gorgeous red stitch binding. So I wanted to try these, and I wanted to color it myself and create my own fancy covers, and then of course paint inside because I love watercolor. So it's something new I'm trying this year, and again, it's the perfect size. Usually with this size you shouldn't have any problems whatsoever because, like I said, it's the size that's been around the longest and it has the most options available. So if this is your sweet spot, then you're pretty much in a good place because you'll find a lot of options. So next up, let's move on to extra wide. All right, guys, we're in the home stretch. This is extra wide. So these dimensions tend to be about 5 inches by 8 1/4 inches. And I have here a few options. So the more widespread option is the Moleskine. So I have here 3 booklets. They offer a variety of blank and grid and lined. I think these generally come in either a 2 or 3 pack, and these you can pretty much find anywhere online or in local stores. Next up, I have here 2 booklets from Inkwell Press. I love their booklets. They are so beautiful. They're hand sewn. This one is grid, and even though it's a little shorter, I mean, the width is just right. So once again, a lot of these sizes are pretty flexible. If you're not too married to the, it has to be absolutely perfect. It doesn't bother me any, as long as it fits and I can stuff it, nothing is sticking out or nothing is intruding with my pens. I frankly don't care. So I can stick 2 of these booklets with my 3 Moleskines, really stuff this book, and as you can see here, I can get a pretty full book and still have room to grow. So it really doesn't bother me. If that's something that bothers you, then, you know, don't worry about it. But I just wanted to point out that that's another great option. And then lastly, I was kind of wandering around my local Barnes & Noble, and I found this 3-pack. I'm not quite sure who the maker is. I mean, down here it says Barnes & Noble, but then over here it says Alphabet, spelled A-L-F-A-B-E-T. So I'm not quite sure if it's Barnes & Noble or a company called Alphabet. But again, I looked at the dimensions. I said, you know what, that looks like extra wide to me. And again, this is one of those that doesn't fit perfectly. So compared to a Moleskine, it's almost the height, it's almost the width, it's a little bit wider, but quite frankly, you know, as you can see here, it's within the borders of, you know, an extra wide. And if I were to put it in here, you know, you see that it just comes to the edge, but there's no overhang, and I can use it in this kind of a cover. So, you know, just keep an open mind. There's always something around you that you'll be able to find, and I've been able to find options both online and locally. So that is the booklets that I have for my extra wide. So now let's take a look at the last size that I have, which is A5. So the last size we're going to go over is the A5 size, which I own. There is one more traveler's notebook size, but it's rarely used because it's so big. It's actually really clunky to carry around. It's called the Notebook or Composition, and that measures 7.5 inches by 10 inches. So I just wanted to mention that that one's out there, but I can't show you anything because I actually don't own it. So let's look at the A5 size, or sometimes people might refer to it as a half letter size. The dimensions are 5.8 inches by 8 by 3 inches, or I tend to round it up. I actually, you know, in my mind, it's 5.5 inches by 8.25 inches. So this one also has a lot of options. There are some that are mainstream. So this here is a Moleskine notebook. I actually use this one as a sketchbook, and it's a little bit narrower, but it will fit in here. It's the right height. So that's the Moleskine. Next up is the ever popular Leuchtturm, and I have two of these. I have a soft cover and a hard cover, and these are the most popular books by bullet journalists. The hardcover one is a little bit thicker, the soft covered one is a little thinner, but it's more flexible, and these will fit in here perfectly. So that's that one. And then recently Leuchtturm did a collaboration for the bullet journal. So this one I found in my local Barnes & Nobles, and I was really excited. So it's very similar to the Leuchtturm, but it has some additional pre-printed pages to support a bullet journal system. And this, of course, will fit in perfectly because it's an A5 size. And then lastly, I have a Rhodia web notebook. So this is another popular book for fountain pen users. The pen is ideal for that. And again, it's an A5 size, so it would fit perfectly into an A5 cover. Now, I also wanted to share some planners and other books that I've gotten from unconventional sources, you know, that you may not be aware of. So this one is my passion planner. I ordered it about 2 years ago, and they offer it in two sizes. So this is the smaller size. It's approximately about the size of an A5. There's also a larger one that's more like a letter size. So this one would fit in here. So if you're a passion planner user, this would fit in here perfectly. Next, once again, Inkwell Press makes its appearance. They have these wonderful quarterly booklets that are A5 size, and I used this to manage my blog content in 2016, and these fit in here perfectly. So that's another option. This is another popular option. Sorry about the glare, guys. This is the Law of Attraction Planner. And I got this from Amazon, and I got the beautiful gold one. So it's about an A5 size. It is thick. I have the pen kind of clip to the top, but it's a much thicker planner. But this one will fit in this cover. So if you're a fan of the Law of Attraction planner, this one will fit in here. Now this one, it looks a little fancy. Believe it or not, I got this from my local Barnes and Nobles. They always have these wonderful books with different themes. So this one, you know, I grew up loving Cinderella, so I love the cover on this, and then it has, you know, kind of the carryover of the carriage and the castle. So this is just one of those books that, you know, you can use for almost anything. But like the Lloydstrom and Moleskine and all the other books, you can see it's about an A5 size. So, you know, there's nothing that would stop you from using a book of this dimension, you know, in this kind of a cover. So if you have a favorite, whether it's Star Wars or Wonder Woman or something else, some other theme, just know that, you know, you can use these hardcover notebooks in this kind of a cover. Next up, I have this notebook. It's called The Notebook by a company called Apika. And this one is nice and thin. It's a popular brand with fountain pen users. So I had gotten this notebook as part of a sampler set. And it's the perfect size. The black binding is kind of making it disappear against the purple background, but as you can see, it's the perfect dimension. It's pretty thin, and these are really inexpensive. So it's a great option if you want a lined notebook to use in your traveler's notebook. And then lastly, this is a company that I discovered last year. They're called Taroko Shop. They're available both on Etsy and also on their own website. I apologize for the glare. So here I purchased kind of a 2-pack of booklets. So these are the thinner Tomoe River paper booklets. So I had gotten these. And then I also got this one on clearance. So this is their Enigma notebook, and it's much, much thicker. It's also Tomoe River paper, and it comes with an index, and it comes with the dot grid. It's a beautiful notebook. I haven't had the chance to use it, but I bought it with the sole purpose of using it in a traveler's notebook cover. So it's also approximately an A5 size and would fit in here perfectly. So like I was saying before, I don't mind using bound books because what I tend to do, and I'll just show you, I had to take all the other books off screen so it doesn't take up too much room. But what I do is, if it's a thicker book, I will use it by itself, and I'll thread the first strand over the inside cover, the front cover, and then I'll take the last strand and thread it over the back cover. And what that does is that it now supports it on either side. It holds it right in the middle, and it will hold it in place. And that's my preferred way of putting bound books into a traveler's notebook cover, because that way, you know, I really don't like kind of finding the middle and putting it down, because then it starts to fray the pages. This way it's just dead center, and you know, it'll hold it in place and you don't have that problem. If I want to carry something else, the other thing I might do is that maybe I won't use the last strand. I might use the third one or the second one, and then I'll leave one free in case I wanted to include a zip pocket or some sort of a dashboard. But yeah, you know, I'm pretty much, I like it either way. As a matter of fact, for work, I'm using a Mikel Ruiz journal, which is very, very thick, and it's in an A5 cover, and it works perfectly for me. This is the A5 size. So you've gotten to see that I have a wide variety assortment of different kinds of notebooks from different kinds of makers. I've found them locally, I've found them online, I've sought them out from specific, you know, custom vendors. So it's available everywhere. Now let me share with you my top tip for being able to find booklets for any of your traveler's notebook, regardless of size. So my number one tip to help you find booklets, whether it's online or in a local store by your house, is to remember the dimensions. If you have several notebooks, carry them with you. That's how I've been lucky enough to find books at many of the stores in my immediate area. I happen to wander in and I'll see a packet with 2 or 3 notebooks, and I'll look at it and I'll say, that looks like that might fit in this particular cover. And then I'll check the dimensions and I'm right. That's what's brought me a lot of luck. I suggest that you do the same, whether you're shopping online or you're shopping locally. Just keep in mind the dimensions of the notebook sizes that you use the most, and I guarantee you'll find something. You'd be surprised, because at first I thought, I'm going to have to order online all the time. And then when I started paying attention to the dimensions, I realized, wow, there's actually a lot of options near me. So I'm going to put the dimensions in the description bar below in case you want to copy and paste those. I'll also include it on my blog. But as long as you keep track of the dimensions, you'll always find the book somewhere. So I hope you found this helpful and realize that there's a lot of options available both online and locally. And use my top tip for trying to find those elusive notebooks for your traveler's notebook. Watch out for future videos, and if you have any topic requests or questions, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and like, share, and subscribe. Check out my blog at lildevette.com for more information. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, bye.